Alright, grab a drink and pull up a chair, because we need to have a serious heart-to-heart about how every single indie studio with a tile editor keeps slapping the Metroidvania label on their game. Whenever I see yet another side-scroller claiming to revolutionize non-linear exploration, my mind automatically prepares itself for a snooze fest. After digging into the backlog, I unearthed a selection of titles that honor the grand legacy of Super Metroid and Symphony of the Night. Here are 15 such titles that proved my skepticism wrong. Now for me, dark fantasy action RPGs usually live or die on monster slaying, and Elderand delivers incredible thrills if you care more about raw DPS than platforming. Unearthing world secrets by looting diary entries off slaying cultists hooked me immediately. Swinging from grapple points with the floatiest jump physics known to man, however, drove me up the wall. Whenever I tried to chain airborne movements during precise hazards, the clumsy momentum made me want to chuck my controller into orbit. Thankfully, combat pulls you back into the zone with heavy weapon scaling and slick animation priority, letting you hot swap from a lumbering battle axe to a magical staff in a millisecond. The grim, blood-soaked pixel art looks like a heavy metal album cover come to life. I spent an embarrassingly long time screaming at the obtuse puzzle logic in late-game temples when I played this back in 2018. Trying to guess the exact nonsensical sequence required while swapping forms on the fly felt like pulling teeth without anesthesia. Push past those moments of raw frustration, though, and the genius of shapeshifting between 6 distinct animal forms shines. You shift from a venom-spitting snake sticking to mossy hitboxes to a frog swinging across chasms by his tongue in a seamless flow. The cartoon-style animated visuals masks a surprisingly deep adventure topped off by a legendary soundtrack co-composed by Yuzo Koshiro. Relying strictly on environmental pinball flippers to launch your little mail-delivering dung beetle around a sunny tropical island replaces traditional jumping with physics-based traversal. Villa Gorilla pulled off something truly unique with this concept, walking away with a shiny BAFTA award in 2019. Backtracking across the island when you make a bad shot, however, tests human patience. Missing a simple target means falling all the way down 3 screens of pinball ramps, making you line up the exact same trick shot 4 times in a row to return to where you were. You'd lose your sanity, I know I did. Thankfully, the cheerful soundtrack lowers your blood pressure and eases away the rage, making it easy to forgive your little dung beetle buddy for bouncing off the wrong bumper. The pixel art presentation in this licensed anime release by Team Ladybug stands out rather stunningly, featuring fluid sprite work that makes every bow shot and cape swish feel magical. Dropping back in 2021 to an impressive 80+ Metascore, the experience feels like an unreleased Symphony of the Night expansion. Gameplay revolves around a frantic dance of elemental attunement where you constantly toggle between Sylph for wind and Salamander for fire to absorb matching damage hazards like a high-speed Ikaruga match. The dynamic soundtrack elevates every boss arena, especially as you harvest soul screamers from fallen bad guys to level up your inactive elemental form. Hitting the end screen after 5 tiny hours, though, left me stranded with 0 post-game content right when the fighting system reached peak perfection. You spend the whole afternoon getting hooked on these incredible systems, only for the game to end before the journey even stretches its legs. Chair Entertainment won over 50 Game of the Year awards back on Xbox 360, but launching the 2016 remaster exposed some seriously dusty skeleton bones. The narrative reads like a bargain bin Tom Clancy fanfiction, and trying to line up shots on guards in the 3D background using an analog stick feels like wrestling a grease block of soap, taking tons of unnecessary damage during tense firefights because auto-aim locked onto the wrong target has aged like milk. It most likely drove many players nuts, including myself. Once you start picking up the traversal gear, though, the progression rhythm takes off. The foam gun stands out as a stroke of brilliance, letting you ignore room layout limits by building your own hardened staircases up smooth walls or blocking toxic vent hazards on the fly to bypass entire security sectors. The somber musical score in Momodora Moonlit Farewell gives you instant goosebumps from the moment you hit the title screen. Bomb Service delivered hypnotizing midnight-soaked pixel scenes paired with lovely smooth attack animations, while combat gives you dodge rolls with generous iframe windows and companion summons. Progression gets quirky with the new sigil card system, requiring tailored passive buff builds to unlock sealed doors throughout the map. As soon as you hit the midpoint of the campaign, however, Momo becomes so ridiculously overpowered that boss fights lose all sense of tension. You can stand in place, button mash your primary attack, and wipe out late-game bosses without ever bothering to learn their attack patterns. It felt disappointing, though. Spending hours customizing builds only to destroy final bosses in 10 seconds flat completely robs the late game of any real satisfaction. Honestly, those Chozo hint statues frequently marking your map with explicit objective waypoints almost ruin the fun of exploring Samus's 2004 Game Boy Advance classic. Instead of letting you wander into the unknown and get delightfully lost, waypoints virtually hold your hand by pointing a finger toward the next power-up room. It was truly a buzzkill. Well, for me anyway. Thankfully, you can bypass most of it once you learn advanced sequence-breaking routes to forge your own path with razor-sharp wall jumps and plasma beams. The real stroke of genius happens in the late-game Zero Suit sequence, stripping away all your power armor and leaving you to creep through vents using stealth and a weak stun pistol against terrifying space pirates. Playing as a grizzled smoking rabbit carrying a giant robotic fist in Torch City sounds insane, but the brawler depth here is world-class. Built on Unreal Engine 4, the city stands out as a vibrant, gritty metropolis filled with intricate industrial details, where you can seamlessly swap between a fist, drill, and whip mid-air to juggle robotic dog troopers. Those underwater exploration zones and late-game precision platforming challenges are an absolute nightmare. The wonky swimming physics can feel clunky compared to ground movement, and failing precision obstacle courses 10 times in a row almost made me punch a wall. Such rage was unholy. But the roaring industrial sound design drags you right back into the action every time you pick up the controller to land another mid-air combo. Nothing kills my enthusiasm faster than a game throwing 5 different unexplained currencies at my head within 30 minutes of opening menus. Moonscars debuted in 2022, and I spent my first few hours thoroughly bewildered by bone powder glands and temporary clay rights passives. I mean, what the heck? To make matters worse, whenever you die, the Ravenous Moon feature kicks in, buffing enemy health and damage across the whole map until you cough up rare resources to fix it. Punishing players for dying in an already punishing experience feels downright malicious. I nearly quit. But once you embrace the grim, tragic story of Grey Irma, a warrior made of clay hunting down her creator, the dark fantasy atmosphere takes control, and parrying incoming strikes feels as crunchy and satisfying as cutting through heavy armor. From the moment you step into this alien world of Sudra in Axiom Verge, the haunting, throbbing chiptune soundtrack grips you by the throat and never lets go. Single-handedly crafted by Thomas Happ, this sci-fi adventure nails the unsettling biomechanical NES-era Metroid aesthetic, filling the screen with weird alien structures and terrifying monstrosities. The standout gameplay innovation is the Address Disruptor, a glitch gun letting you corrupt enemy pixels, altered hitboxes, and solid wall tiles to discover hidden secrets. By the endgame, though, the absurd amount of useless weapons bloating your inventory was something that just grated me. You end up carrying so many different guns, yet only 3 prove useful, making you scroll past garbage weapons during chaotic boss fights to find the gun you need, which is really annoying. Having to pause mid-battle just to navigate a messy gun wheel completely kills the pacing of an otherwise brilliant retro throwback. Billy Basso's solo project earned massive acclaim in 2024, but if you think you're going to solve all its secrets without using Google, to put it bluntly, you're delusional. While the base layer of exploration is accessible enough, the absurdly obscure rabbit puzzles and 50-player community ARG requirements quickly cross the line into headache territory. Unless you enjoy staring at a wall for hours trying to decipher cryptic pixel patterns, you will eventually be driven to look up a guide online. If you can accept that you'll need outside help for the late-game secrets, the experience remains a dream for puzzle box obsessives. There is zero traditional combat, making you rely on items like a slinky, yo-yo, and bubble wand to outsmart predators inside a dark CRT-lit pixel world packed with terrifying animal encounters. From the moment Samus lands on planet Zebes in the pouring rain, the dark pixel art and environmental storytelling in Super Metroid establish an unmatched vibe of isolated horror. The map design shines as a triumph of hidden systems, including bizarre, obscure secrets like the Crystal Flash healing ritual requiring bombs dropped under precise inventory stats. The controller setup shows its age in ways that will drive you crazy during boss fights. Cycling through missiles, super missiles, and X-ray visors with the select button is a total pain in the ass. Having to toggle weapons mid-fight during frantic boss battles feels painfully clunky compared to modern twin-stick setups. Even with that control quirk, the ambient soundtrack and interconnected world layout keep this 1994 classic sitting comfortably on the throne. Combat speed in Dead Cells is legendary, combining lightning-fast dodge rolls, weapon synergies, and fluid movement that makes every run feel like an adrenaline shot. Finding the customization rune unlocks custom mode, letting you curate weapon pools or tweak difficulty modifiers to turn an unforgiving roguelike into your personal action playground. The relentless RNG on higher boss cell difficulties, however, can ruin your night regardless of your skill level. Getting handed crappy weapon synergy drops right before a major boss fight after spending so much time mastering combat feels like trash. I'll be honest, it made me quit, but the synth soundtrack and pixel art drew me right back into the fray for one more run. Swapping between 3 distinct weapons, especially the lightning-fast rapier and dagger combo, Sarmiento in Centella completely transforms combat in Blasphemous 2. Landing hits without taking damage activates Verdadera Destreza, buffing your blades with electrical lightning DPS and turning combat into a high-speed dance of momentum. Visually, the Spanish Catholic religious horror art style looks spectacular, with grotesque pixel bosses and a haunting acoustic soundtrack that gives every cathedral an incredible atmosphere. Exploring the middle regions feels a bit like running through generic video game dungeons rather than surviving a cursed holy nightmare. Surprisingly, it felt safe. If you look at screenshots of ASTLIBRA Revision, you would swear it was a cheap Flash game slapped together in a weekend. Yet solo developer Kizo poured 15 years of his life into this 2022 title, earning a 95% overwhelmingly positive Steam rating through brilliant systems design. The epic, multi-chapter time travel narrative hooks you fast, delivering unpredictable plot twists alongside an enormous grow skill tree and Karen skills that function like passive chips. Your sanity does get tested though by the hideous clunky UI clutter and the heavy late-game stat grind, spending hours grinding force points just to unlock incremental skill nodes across an overloaded menu screen is an eyesore. Some of your playtime is spent wrestling with messy menus and staring at mismatched art assets just to optimize your stat numbers for the next boss encounter. A varied lineup of games proving the Metroidvania tag still has plenty of life left in it when devs actually innovate. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the picks, or maybe you have a gem I glossed over. Comment below, and as always, we really appreciate you watching. Take care.